Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
For centuries, ancient cultures knew the secrets to longevity, vitality, and healing. Now, modern science is catching up. Ageless Blueprint is a podcast that will reveal the modern secrets of better health and a better life. Join Dr. Eldred Taylor here today and every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. As together we discover the secrets to better health through science and spirituality. A better life with Ageless Blueprint starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Hello, hello, hello. This is the Ageless Blueprint, and I'm Dr. Eldred Taylor. I am the hormone doctor, and also I am the spiritual MD. You know, this morning in my school group, I always give an ageless tip, a tip of the day. And today it was about clarity and how when you are clear about your purpose and about what you should be doing, that's what gives you energy and vitality. Because today we're going to talk about 5 things that can decrease your energy and how to reverse that. So when you're clear, it just gives you energy. It gives you motivation because you are very clear and you're aware of what you should be doing. And, that's what happened to me. And the whole reason why I started this Ageless Blueprint is that I had to become clear on how I was going to live the rest of my life. And I've said this before. I took this course called Reality Creator, and it allowed me to do an identity shift. And what that means is that if you want to be something or do something else, you have to become a different person. If you want to be healthy, if you're sick and you want to be healthy, you have to be that healthy person before your health changes. If you want to be wealthy or if you want to be loved, you have to be a loving person. You have to think, feel like a wealthy or a loving person before that ever is going to happen to you. And so that opened my eyes to what I could do. And so I said, look, I want the rest of my life, I want to be able to share this knowledge that I've gained over 30 years. And I want to empower people to become educated. Now, I've been reading a lot of books, and what I found out is that, education was never meant for the masses. Education was for the elite. If you look back in history, you'll see it was only elitists that went to college or whatever. And they were educated in the real mysteries, the inner workings of life and how nature and how the world works. And the elite, they held education so that they held on to education and made it very hard to obtain, because then you could control the masses. Okay. And if you could control how they think, if you can limit what they're exposed to, and you can narrow down their focus, it makes them very easy to control. And that's why, I don't want to be too controversial. That's why they try to control the curriculum in schools. That's why they try to control you spiritually with religion. Okay, is that they try and narrow you down, and they don't want you to look outside of what they want you to focus on. And that happened to me in medical school, is that they narrowed down my focus, that I only looked at pharmacology. They didn't want me to look at anything else. Don't look at chiropractor. Don't look at homeopathy. Don't look at any of that stuff. And that's ridiculous. Okay. And now with social media and YouTube or whatever, if you are ignorant about certain things, it's by choice, because no one controls the flow of information anymore. And that's why people, a lot of doctors, they hate for patients to come in after they've searched on Google. Now, there's a lot of crazy information out there, that's for sure. But there's a lot of good information out there. And I'll tell you, because of YouTube and opening or expanding my horizons, it has allowed me to be a different person. It has allowed me to be excited about my future at age 65. Okay. A lot of people can't understand it. How can you be so sure and so happy about your future? It's because I'm living that right now. A lot of the things that I have envisioned for myself and for this whole platform, it hasn't happened yet, but I already am living like it has happened. And that is one of those mysteries, those keys that people have been sharing orally since back 10,000 years ago. Let me tell you what I learned when I went to Egypt in December is that I've learned that we may not be the smartest people that ever lived. Okay? Now that's hard for us to believe. We think that we're so advanced, but we may not be the smartest people who've ever lived on this planet. And you go to Egypt and you see those temples and you see what they were able to create thousands of years ago. And you begin to understand that maybe there's information to be learned, not by looking at what's new, but by looking at what's old. There's a saying that says, if you want new ideas, you should read old books. And I can't tell you how true that is. When I wanted to have new ideas about hormones and hormone replacement, I looked at the old physiology book and it gave me all of these new ideas. When I look at these old books, you look at the mystery teachings, the information that was transmitted orally for thousands of years to help people to understand the blueprint to life and vitality and purpose. And you begin to say, hey, look, maybe those people knew something that we need to know, we need to regain. And I think that we've lost a lot of the connection that we used to have with the higher power, with the ultimate intelligence. And again, that you have to expand your mind a little bit to understand, but we're going to stay basic here. But I just wanted to say that is that the school platform, it's here to educate the masses so that you don't have to bow down to authority. You know, I told you I had an oncology patient who she asked the doctor what could she do to help herself, how could she be involved in her own wellness and healing. And the doctor said, there's nothing you can do, just do the chemo and the radiation. That's asinine, and don't listen to that. You need to do your own research. You have to be your own advocate for your health care. And I'm here to try and help you sift through some of the information you might be getting, because even when we're talking about hormones and natural hormone replacement, there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I feel obligated to try and be that reasonable voice. So anyway, so Rebel, I don't want to keep rambling on. You have any questions, or does that make any sense? You have anything you want to add or subtract from that before I start with the slides?
Definitely makes sense. And the reading old books, that is genius. Absolutely genius. Because people wrote things and they put them in there and then they took it all away and they forgot about it, or they wanted you just not to listen to this. Yeah. So if you go back and read things, you might learn a thing or two.
Yep. Now I'm going to tell you, when Egypt and these old civilizations were conquered, they wanted to destroy all those records. You see the Dead Sea Scrolls and all. It wasn't an accident that it was thousands of years before we discovered those. There was information there that they didn't want the masses to know, so that they could continue to control and have their royalty and their kingdoms or whatever. Is that you have to keep them ignorant. In slavery, the number one thing was to keep the slaves ignorant. And when they're ignorant, you can try and control them. But there's something.
They knew more than the people who had them enslaved. They had knowledge that if only people knew, and it's coming out now. You can learn things from people, and you need to hear things. And if you impart these things that people are teaching, you'll be better off.
Yeah. Hey, look, I took that reality creator course it changed me. And that's what we're talking about. I want this to be more than information. I want it to be transformation, is that you transform yourself and taking full control of your life. And that means that you evaluate everything you see or hear. I don't care how many degrees a person has. I didn't do the background with my degrees because that I'm not trying to be an authority. I'm trying to empower you to take control of your life. I took control of my future. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave a legacy that this doc was trying to help me to better understand myself so that I could take control of my future. So let's just look. And I will tell you, when you feel like you are a victim and you have no control, that is probably the number one thing that decreases your energy. So let's talk about those real quick, and let's just go from there. So let's go from the first slide. So 5 things that are killing your energy after 40, and it could be even before 40, and how to reverse them. And I think this is the first thing I want to say is that when you are not doing what you should be doing, what God sent you here to do, you are out of alignment. And sometimes it takes a lot of trial and error to figure out what you're supposed to do. And you're supposed to do different things at different points in your life. And we all know that. You have a time where you're supposed to be educated, you go to school and everything. Then again, they make you narrow down your focus and say, what do you want to study? What do you want to major in? And then, you decide on that and you become an adult and you start to work and you get married and you have children. And me personally, I became an OBGYN. I became a father. Then I all of a sudden I had an idea to write a book, and me and my wife, we wrote those 2 books. And then when you write a book, a lot of times you get asked to speak. So I had to learn how to become a speaker. And then I really got interested in functional medicine. So anyway, you have different times that you should be aligned with what you're supposed to do, but it's all developing you in order for you to continue to grow and expand. And so I'm still growing and expanding even at my age at 64, 65. And, I keep saying that because I see so many people in their 60s and 70s and they don't look like they're in alignment. They don't look like they are living life to the fullest. Okay. So anyway, and you need to be in alignment physically. And I'll tell you, anybody who I have talked to, over 80 years old that really look like they have a lot of vitality and energy, they all say you have to keep moving. Believe me, once you lose your mobility, it's highly likely you're going to go downhill fast, because if you don't use it, you lose it. And being mobile, we are mobile beings. We are supposed to be moving and active. And when you lose that ability, then a lot of things start to deteriorate. So chemically, we need to be clean, detoxify ourselves. There's all these new dangerous chemicals that are on our food and in our air and coming out of the exhaust pipes of engines and and from factories. So we're being bombarded with all these chemicals that our body has to try and figure out how to metabolize them and eliminate them. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. We're going to talk about that. And emotionally, now that's what I guess I always knew it because we wrote this book called The Stress Connection that talked about how stress, whether it's a physical stress or mental stress, it all causes physical symptoms. It disrupts organ systems. It disrupts the function of the body, and it almost disrupts everything. And so emotionally, you need to be stable. You need to be able to turn off that stress response and allow your body to relax and to heal. And I've been talking about meditation a lot, and I think it's essential for your emotional well-being is to really meditate and look inwardly so that you can figure out what inside of you is causing the problems that are actually outside of you. And that's a principle that people need to learn, is that if your outside world is chaotic, It's because your inside world is chaotic. And you just think about it. When you are emotionally unstable, your world gets unstable. When you can become emotionally stable, it seems like the world becomes more organized. And that's an old ancient principle called the mirror principle, is that you create what you see, taste, and feel by your consciousness, by your emotional signature, the frequency of your electromagnetic field. And again, we're getting deep. That's kind of my new frontier is learning that. And then spirituality. And when we talking about narrowing down focus, my dad was a Baptist minister. Now, my dad was more open-minded than most ministers, I think, is that I think because he was a Mason, I think he understood spirituality more than religion. And you have to think about religion. Religion really wants you to narrow down your focus, whatever your religion is. Most religions do not. I'll just talk about Christianity. That's what I know. I was really taught not to look at any other religions, that this is the only one. And that always, I don't know, I just couldn't understand that. I couldn't understand how these people with other religions, and then just thinking about how people lived thousands and thousands of years ago before there was Christianity. What happened? Well, they were spiritually connected. And when I took this longevity course so that I could try and teach longevity, it said that spirituality, people who lived longer, they had some type of spiritual connection. It didn't say they were a part of some type of religious organization. It just said that they had a spiritual connection. And you have to make sure, I don't care what religion you are, is make sure that you have a connection. I always thought you're supposed to have a personal relationship with God. And I never really understood that until now. And now through meditation mostly, is it has allowed me to reconnect spiritually. And I just want people, I'm not anti-religion. I'm not. I'm I was raised by a Baptist minister and a Christian family or whatever, but I had to expand. Now that I've looked at other information, I'm not narrowing down my focus. It expanded my idea of spirituality. And for me, it's been life-changing, is that more scientifically, I can understand spirituality by understanding energy and again, I don't want to get too deep. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going. All right. So energy complaints. So I'll tell you that 9 times out of 10, these are the symptoms that patients come in. They talk about them always being tired. They talk about brain fog, weight gain, low libido, mood swings, and they all say their labs are normal. And I've talked about this in some previous podcasts, is that we are taught in medical school to identify and treat diseases based on lab values that are 2 standard deviations from the norm. And I hated math too, but I had to go. I had to take statistics. So what that means is you take an average of people, and then you look at the mean, the middle point, and then you do 2 standard deviations from the mean. And if you're outside of that, if you're in this 2.5% here or 2.5% here, high or low, then you have a disease. Okay. So you got to think about that. I have to be in the bottom or the top 2.5% of people for most doctors to classify me with a disease. So always being tired is not really a disease. They call it chronic fatigue, but that's just a description. That's just saying you're tired all the time. Brain fog, what they'll do is do a MRI and they say, oh, we don't see any tumors or anything. Yeah, you were looking for a disease, but they're saying their brain's not functioning correctly. Weight gain, that's usually the number one thing that patients come in, especially women, is weight gain, because your hormones change after 40, and then it can lead to weight gain. And I can explain that a little bit further. Low libido. Now in women, low libido anytime, let me tell you the difference between men and women. Women have to feel good in order for them to have a libido, for them to want to have sex. Men have sex so they can feel good. So women have to feel good first. Men, they want to have sex so they can feel good. So if a woman is tired, if she has brain fog, if she has weight gain, if she doesn't feel good about how she looks, or she doesn't feel good emotionally or even spiritually, then she's going to have a low libido usually, especially after 40. Now, before 40, because women, they're more interested in procreation, they may have sex for that. But after 40, when all of that is over with, then they have to feel good. Now, men, most of the time, their issue is, and now even men over 40, men over 40, about 40% of them have erectile dysfunction. Now, one, it can be cardiovascular, no doubt about it. But also, it can also be due to stress, because most men know about performance anxiety is that when you're stressed or anxious because maybe you had one situation where things didn't work correctly, you become anxious and you're worried that it's going to happen again. And that anxiety can actually be a self-fulfilling prophecy. You actually have to be at rest. The reason why you have morning erections is because your rest and digest system, your parasympathetic system, is dominant during that time. But once you wake up and you have the stress of life, and you come home and the kids are screaming, and all of that can cause erectile dysfunction in men. So I want to make sure I include men in this issue. And the reason why I talk about ED, because this is what I found. The only time men really actually seek healthcare is when things don't work down there. That's when men think it's an emergency. Now, they can have chest pain, they can have all kinds of things wrong with them, and most of the time the women have to beg them to go to the doctor. When that happens, they're they're searching for themselves. So anyway, let's keep going. So mood swings, that usually happens after 40 because of hormone imbalance. And again, the labs are normal because they don't have a disease. They're not in the 2.5% on each end. They are somewhere outside of the norm. Maybe they're here. Maybe the norm is here. So they're out here. So they're not functioning like they did when they were in that midline section there, but they are just not functioning properly. They don't have a disease. And that causes a conflict between the patient and the doctor, because the doctor keeps saying nothing's wrong, and the patient keeps saying, but I don't feel well. And both of them are right. The doctor is saying you don't have a disease. You're not in that 2.5%. He's 100% correct. And you're 100% correct that you don't feel well because you are not functioning properly. So that causes this friction. And that's why both, doctors and patients are both, they're both frustrated. So the number one thing, I have this former life where I was an OBGYN, and then I have this kind of new life where I'm trying to, understand spirituality and understand meditation and how to find your purpose and all that. And so, but I don't think you can take that next step, if physically or hormonally you're out of balance. It just causes too many problems. When progesterone drops in women, they begin to gain weight because progesterone helps you to burn fat for energy. Progesterone also helps to control your mood. That's why during the second half of your cycle, if you don't have enough progesterone, you can have PMS. In perimenopause, because you don't ovulate as well because you're going into menopause, you have even worse PMS. And now when you are menopausal, your progesterone is totally gone because you don't ovulate, then you can have even more problems with hot flashes and weight gain and mood swings. Testosterone drops in men, primarily because of stress. When you're under stress, your body says, hey, you don't need to be going out chasing women and making babies. You're wiped out, you're stressed out. So we're going to cut down your libido. I can't tell you, there's several men who come in and think that their testosterone is the problem, and it's not. It's cortisol and it's stress. And once we can correct that, their testosterone goes up automatically. Cortisol rises with stress, but also when you're under stress long enough, cortisol can fall. And that can cause fatigue because cortisol rises under stress because they think you need more energy to run or fight. Now, that's fine if you're going to do an athletic event or whatever, but chronic stress causes cortisol to fall, so you have decreased energy. And also the fatigue causes the low libido and ED. So yeah, if you're tired, it takes some energy to have sex. So if you're tired, you're probably going to have low libido. So I've been talking about saliva testing. Saliva testing is how you figure all this out. So I have a video here just to show you how easy it is, because a lot of times we try to make things that are simple. I want to show you here. Okay, here we go. Well, go ahead. Let's just show it and then we talk about it. I want to show you how simple it is to understand what your hormones are. And actually, if you order a saliva test, and I'll show you that at the end, I'll give you a video review like this. So now you can run it, Rebel. Okay, what I want to show you here is what your video response will be. Well, what I want to show you is how easy it is to look at these test results and see for yourself what the problem is. This is the most important number here, is this progesterone estrogen ratio. It should be greater than 200. So what you look at is that this estrogen is 1.1. 1.1 times 200 is 220. So her progesterone needs to be at least 220 for this ratio to be correct. Now, this is a 53-year-old woman who's complaining of mood swings, hot flashes, fatigue. And so this is the 3 hormone tests: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Also, it has DHEA in it also. So the progesterone estrogen ratio is what's important. Now, I gave her 100 milligrams of oral progesterone, or you can use our supplement latex that can do almost the same. Now, what you see now is that her estrogen went down a little bit because I think she lost some weight over the 2 to 3 months from these 2 tests. So her estrogen is 0.9. So 0.9 times 200 would be 180. You see her progesterone is 222. Her progesterone estrogen ratio is normal. Her hot flashes went away. She's able to sleep better. She lost some weight. She doesn't have mood swings anymore. She feels much better. Now, also, she's a professional woman, so she has a lot of stress. I think she's taking care of her mother who has dementia, so she has a lot of stress. This is her before cortisol. Now, normal cortisol should be in this green area here. That means that in the morning, because cortisol mobilizes glucose, you have the most amount of energy. It goes down around noontime. You hit a little lull. You eat your lunch. You go through the rest of the day. In the evening, you eat dinner. You get tired. You go to sleep. This is what's supposed to happen. Now, this is this patient. So you see in the morning, she should have this much cortisol, and now her cortisol is down here. So she wakes up and she doesn't have much energy. It's hard for her to get out of bed. And she just goes through the day kind of sluggish. And then at night, you see this begins to go up. And a lot of times when you see this, a patient will say she wakes up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So with that, we gave her a supplement called Adrenacare that you can also find in our store. And that Adrenacare has adaptogens that helps her better adapt to stress. She takes those twice a day. Now her cortisol level is up. Her energy level is up. She feels fine. We repeat the test in another 6 months. Make sure she's nice and stable. That is how easy it is to identify a hormone imbalance and to correct a hormone imbalance. All right. I just want you to see what you will be getting after you do your saliva test. All right. Thanks a lot. So, Rebel, is that easy or not?
It definitely seems easy. Now, what hormones is that? Do we have a range of hormones, or are we looking at a specific range of hormones in the saliva test?
No, it's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and DHEA. So for women, the real key is balancing that estrogen and progesterone. That estrogen progesterone ratio is key. Is you look at that estrogen, okay, where does her progesterone need to be? 200 times that. When you do that, a myriad of symptoms go away: hot flashes, mood swings, difficulty sleeping, losing weight, just by that one little tweak. And that's what we talk about with functional medicine, is that most of the time you can do one thing. If you do the one root cause, all of these other symptoms go away. In conventional medicine, we try and take each symptom and give a solution or a drug for each symptom. Here's your sleeping pill. Here's your antidepressant for your mood swings. Here's your weight loss drug for your gaining weight. Here's, your gabapentin from, it's all of these things. But when you can fix the root cause, you fix her stress and you fix her hormones, now everything else gets better. Now she can think about her purpose. Now maybe she can quiet her mind and meditate and kind of get back in touch with her true self. So that's why that's the initial thing. Can we get you hormonally and neurologically back to normal? Now we can go
medicines
deeper.
Contradict themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Cause more problems.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about. When you hit the root cause, all these other symptoms go away. When you add a medication, you may quiet one symptom, but you're going to cause 2 or 3 more. That's why on all these commercials, the last 30 seconds or 20 seconds is talking about all of the things, all of the side effects that it can have, they can have. So you give one drug and then it can cause 20 different problems. Okay. And you're not going to have all 20 of them, but hey, if you have 10% of them, that's 2 problems. Now you have double the problems that you had at the beginning. So, hey, I know it's commercial time. So let's do that. And then if you have some more questions, I have 4 other things that we need to talk about. But number 1 is get your hormones right. Okay, so let's have our commercial and we'll come back and finish up.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the Ageless Blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Okay, I'm back. This is Dr. Taylor. It's Ageless Blueprint. I'm the hormone doctor and the spiritual MD. Hey, Rebel, you were talking about if there are other hormones. Probably the other hormone that most people are familiar with is thyroid hormone. And let me tell you this about after 40 and thyroid hormone. A lot of women are put on thyroid medication around the time of menopause because they begin to gain weight. Well, let me tell you the root cause of that weight gain is actually because progesterone is diminished in perimenopause and menopause. Now, estrogen, which causes you to store fat, is dominant. Now, the other thing that estrogen does, it increases something called thyroid binding globulin. And it does just what it sounds like. It binds thyroid hormone. So when it's bound, it can't attach to the receptor. So your thyroid begins to slow down. So a lot of women are put on thyroid medication. But the real problem is that their estrogen progesterone is out of balance. That's why they're gaining weight. So, I asked women, I'm like, have you ever had a thyroid problem before? And they're like, no. Well, when did you get put on the thyroid medication? Well, when I was 45, because I was gaining weight. Because most doctors are narrowly focused on thinking that, hey, if you are overweight, either it's low thyroid or you're sneaking in the refrigerator at night and you're not being truthful about what you're eating and how much you're exercising. But I'm going to tell you that you cannot diet and exercise your way past a hormone problem. And women have proven that to themselves already. I can't tell you the number of women that you see in the gym, and they're working their behinds off and nothing's happening. And I'm like, you can't exercise and diet your way past a hormone problem. And I've learned that in my 30 years of dealing with women, is that once you fix their hormones, now they go and work out and now they start to see results. All right. So any other questions? I know I got to move on. So even thyroid hormone is an issue, but those are the major ones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid hormone. Those are probably the biggest, and those are the ones that can change as you age. A lot of the other hormones, they're going to be the same, corticosteroid. And so, yeah, those are the biggies. All right, let's go to the next one. Now, nervous system burnout is this fight or flight. I just left Joe Dispenza's week-long retreat or whatever, and he talks about being addicted to the chemicals of stress. When you are fatigued and when you're burnt out, sometimes the only thing that makes you feel alive is when some kind of crisis happens. And some people are addicted to crises, and they actually create the crisis because that's what they're familiar with. So he talks about being addicted to the hormones of stress. And what happens is that you begin to relive your past and you bring it into your future. You start to react to things based on what was in your past, and it keeps you in that mode. And it can make you sick. And that's what the stress connection is about, is that stress can make you sick. And you can think yourself sick. You can think about a stress. That's what PTSD is. You just think, you relive a stressful situation. Now, you may not be reliving war, but you may be reliving war with your ex-spouse, or reliving the war with your mother, or so you have this stress response, and it creates adrenaline. So you feel it's a way of getting energy, but it eventually burns out. Just like you saw in that cortisol test, she eventually began to burn out because she had all these stressors. And then cortisol blocks sex hormones. Again, when you are under stress, you are not thinking about procreating. You are thinking about survival. And when you're in survival mode, what happens is it breaks you down, is what we call it. It's catabolic. It breaks you down. So when you are stressed, you cannot rebuild anything. You have to think, when you are stressed and thinking your life is in danger because you're in this fight or flight, you are not worried. Your immune system is not worried about a cancer that can kill you 10 years from now. It's worried about an infection in case you get bitten by an animal or you get cut by a robber. So that's a different type of immune system. That's your white blood cells and all that. It's another called your T cells that look, and they try and find cancer cells while you're asleep. And so if you have difficulty sleeping, or if you're stressed, it's going to increase your risk of cancer. All right. Because you don't give yourself time to rest and digest. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what allows you to want to have sex. It allows you to think about procreation. It allows your body to repair itself when your mind and your body is quiet. So you want to avoid nervous system burnout. And how do you restore parasympathetic activity? Is you can do it through rest. So sleep is so important. I tell patients nothing gets better if you don't sleep, because that's when you rest and digest and you repair. Breath work. If you can focus on it, if you can slow down your breath, and if you can control your thoughts, your heart rate slows down. And when your heart rate slows down, that's stimulated by the vagus nerve. And that's what causes everything to slow down and to start to repair itself and to start to look and see where their abnormalities are. And your body can heal itself if you allow it time to do it. That's why when you get sick, you want to get in the bed and you want to rest, because that rest allows your body to heal itself. That Claritin and all of that other stuff, yeah, that may help some, but the rest is allowing your body to do what it naturally can do, is heals itself. And grounding, just being present where you are and not thinking about what might happen, because you're always going to think the worst case scenario. So you can think yourself sick about things that have not even happened. So you think about the bad things that have happened, and then you project that and think about what might happen. And so you're in this constant stress mode. So you have to stop. You have to break it. You have to come and be present in this moment. Don't think about the past. Don't think about the future. That is when your body can heal. And that is when you can hear that still small voice that aligns you and tells you what you need to do. All right. All right. So we got a few more minutes left. Let's get going. All right. Toxins, gut backup. You need another thing that sucks away your energy is that if you can't rest or digest, and it's important to be able to digest your food. If your gut is not working and you are having diarrhea and things, you're not absorbing anything. Your gut can be inflamed, and it causes it where it can't absorb nutrients, and it can't keep out toxins. Your gut is a filter. It should only let in nutrients, and any toxins should go out the other end. Now, if you're having bowel movements 3 times a week instead of 3 times a day, those toxins just sit there and it inflames the bowel. And when it's inflamed, it can allow things to seep through. You just think when your nose is inflamed, when your mucous membranes are inflamed, they get leaky. And that's what leaky gut is. That gut is inflamed. Things leak in that shouldn't leak in. Your body sees it as a foreign body, and it causes an inflammatory response. Now, it's not like when you eat shellfish and your whole face breaks out. It's that low level of inflammation. And that low level of inflammation is what is a deadly killer. Okay. Inflammation is some people even call it inflammaging, is that inflammation ages you. Okay. Because you're not absorbing nutrients, you're letting all these toxins in, you have an inflammatory response that can cause brain fog. That constant inflammation, just like when you're sick, you have no energy. Well, you may be not bedridden sick, but you have that low level of inflammation that is sucking away your energy. So you want to make sure that your gut works. All right. You want to have good bowel movements. You want to be able to detox, and you want to take probiotics. And there's other things you can do. And we can talk about that later, is to decrease that inflammation. You can do food sensitivity tests. And we talk about all of that in our school group when you take our upper level class. All right, let's see. All right, nutrient deficiency. How you get a nutrient deficiency? By your gut not working. Okay, there's things that you need to absorb from the food you eat. And the problem is a lot of the food that we eat don't have the nutrients that they're supposed to have. A lot of this industrialized farming has stripped away all of the nutrients and the minerals in the ground, in the soil. And so even when you're eating broccoli, the nutrients that should be in the broccoli aren't really there. And that's why when you go to, I hear this all the time, people go to other countries and they talk about how the food tastes different and how much more flavorful it is. And that's because they have not destroyed the soil with all this industrialization. Okay. So it can also be depleted by stress, by different medications. And yes, as you get older, things like NAD go down, and we don't even make our own vitamin C. So we give a lot of IVs in our office. We give something called a super energy IV that has vitamin C and NAD in it. And that really can increase adrenal function and increase your energy level. All right, I got to hurry along here. Emotional and spiritual disconnection. That can sap your energy. I'm going to tell you, I have so much more energy now that I have this to focus on. I'm telling you, I can't wait to get up in the morning to do my Ageless tip of the day. I can't wait to think about different podcasts that I can do, different YouTube videos I can do. And I was really stuck. I mean, I'm really into the hormones, but I did that 20 years ago, and I feel obligated to keep talking about that. But the reason why I really started this Ageless Blueprint is to talk about how if you can go inward and you can let go of the things that you need to let go of and grab hold to the things you should be grabbing hold to, it can totally transform your life. Okay. And you want to get out of this survival mode and stop thinking about, and when you're in survival mode, all you're thinking about is yourself and what you are doing right now. All you can see is your present day circumstances. And you project that and think that it's always going to be like that. And when there's a statement that this too shall pass. And that's how you have to live life. Like whatever this situation is, it will pass. And you have to figure out, how is it going to pass? Is it going to pass positively for you, or is it going to pass negatively for you? And you can control that. How you look at the situation, how you evaluate the situation, how you move, and how intuitively you move toward the right path. You can control your future situation. It doesn't have to be based on what you see and hear right now. But when you're in that survival mode, all you're thinking about is survival. How can I get through this day? You're not thinking about how you can get through 5 years from now. You have to get out of that survival mode in order to be able to even think about changing your future. All right, so solution to Ageless Blueprint. This is what we talk about in my school group, and I'm really encouraging you to do that. I'm building it. We want to be a community and share things, but you have to have purpose-driven living, and that's the top. So you really got to go from the bottom up. So one, we got to balance your hormones. I just keep talking about that because I have seen it. If you go to our Google reviews on Taylor Medical Group, you'll see it can be life-changing. If you can get your heart, it changed my life. It changed my career just by understanding this. So then you have to heal your nervous system. I talk about Muse and using this headband to help you to understand and to learn how to meditate. And then we can talk about your gut, maybe do food sensitivity testing if that may be an issue. And then nutritional repair, how to change your diet. I love plant-based diet, but then just how to get better nutrition, and just getting your gut to work will help with that. And then once you get all of that, you'll be surprised at the energy that you have and the emotional stability that you have and the clarity that you have, which is so important if you can do these things. So next slide. So school.com/ageless. I'm steadily building. I told you every morning I think about, how can I make this better? What can I add to it? What kind of YouTube video should I do? So if you can go there, it's a free membership. There's a free course there that talks about hormone clarity. Then there's an upper level course. That course is $99, but believe me, it's all of the information you need. I will respond to any questions. We do a weekly question and answer. I try to record those questions and answers. And then anything, the saliva test, if you want to join Ageless, I have this store called Stan.store, the Hormone Doctor. I have downloads for books there. You can do an audio book, a PDF, and also an ebook. You can download them also any form you want it in. But so please take a look at the store and follow me on TikTok. I've become a little bit of a TikTok fan because I did a TikTok video. I had 187,000 views, and we were talking about fibroids. So I know there's a lot of women out there who are struggling and want to find the answers about what's going on with them. So I'm staying true to my old profession and try to help women with that. But I also want to talk to 40 and 50-year-olds about how they can regain that spark in their life so that they can feel good about their future, no matter what age they are. And that's really the goal of Ageless Blueprint. So I'm going to stop talking. I think we have like less than a minute left. Is that right, Rebel?
I got about 2.
Okay. So please go to my school group. I really want that to become a place where people can always go and find out true information, not something that's filtered through some pharmaceutical company ad or just, misinformation. And this is the final word. I tell you, anything you see or hear, I don't care if it's a doctor, if it's on YouTube or whatever, don't believe a word anybody says until you research it yourself and you feel good about that information. I'm telling you, when you get out of survival mode, your inner self, your intuition will tell you this is for me, or it will tell you that this is not for me. So that's why it's important to quiet your mind and get out of your head all of this chaos that's going on in the outer world, and really focus on quieting down your inner world. And you'll see how the outer world doesn't seem so chaotic anymore once you get yourself in order. So anyway, that's my thought for today. I appreciate again for you. I appreciate you again for tuning in. I hope this is helpful. Please comment below. I'll try and answer all the comments or questions. So until we meet again on next week, I'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining Dr. Taylor today. If you missed any part of this show, just check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Ageless Blueprint is every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. Together, we discover the ancient secrets to better health through science and spirituality made for modern times. Until then, feel free to check out AgelessBlueprintPodcast.com and TaylorMDFormulations.com for more information.